this theme just keeps coming up. I keep talking about this with Lacey, but you just like, it's better just to focus on the seeds that you plant today rather than the harvest, because you don't know where it will end up or what will happen. And so whether good seeds are sown or bad seeds are sown, they all blossom somewhere. So I truly believe that the seeds that Nelson planted within myself and each and every one of his mentees, it's doing some solid good.
Welcome to the WinEH podcast. This show is focused on empowering ranchers. Whether you're a seasoned rancher or just getting started, we'll guide you on how to use the infinite banking concept as an alternative way to finance your operations. It's a better way to think about money. Join us as we discuss planning for the future, attracting the next generation, and the art of keeping more money within the family. Here's your hosts, Winnie and Lacey.
So glad you're choosing to lean in on this conversation that we're going to have today. I'm going to let you take the lead today, Miss Lacey.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you listening and tuning in to us each week. So today we have a very special episode because I am putting Winnie in the hot seat and I want to ask her some questions. So let's get started. So we all know we talk about this concept called the infinite banking concept. And a lot of us have read the book, Becoming Your Own Banker, written by Nelson Nash. But the question today is, who is Nelson Nash to you, Winnie? And can you tell us a little bit about your journey with infinite banking and becoming an authorized practitioner? Because it's a journey that started back in 2009, really.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could share with us, in 2009, what did that look like?
Well, in 2009, we were in the Alberta area anyways. As a recovering single-family real estate investor, we were just coming out of the subprime market. Tough market for real estate investors at that time. We just went through a huge boom and then bang, especially for those that just really started even in the early 2000s or even in the mid, 2004, 2005. Man, if you were holding mortgages that were even less than 10 years old, and when that subprime market hit, it was tough. I've known some investors where they were attempting to come up with like 120,000 negative a month. For myself, I was with my partner at the time, we were coming up with $2,200 a month. And that was the cheaper option to attempt to subsidize our renters to stay in our rental property, because not only did the value of our properties drop, so did the rental market, which means I couldn't charge enough rent to cover all the expenses that I just took on. And being that I was in my latter part of my 20s, when you're entering into the real estate investing world and the market's hot and you get some really good results, it's so hard not to fully delve in. And so we were highly leveraged at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no way out. Couldn't sell our property without paying the bank back like 50% because of the interest rate differential. So to attempt to come up with that kind of money at that time was difficult. So infinite banking actually came at a time when many of my friends and the people I hang out with, we were in debt, and it just became really apparent how much of a slave we were to the lender as a result. And you either had two choices: either you claim bankruptcy / consumer proposal, or you stuck it out somehow. And so the name of the game was to get rid of as much debt as possible. And then just through some of the efforts of the colleagues in the Canadian world here, Jason Lowe and Glenn Zacher, they went and explored an opportunity that was not really known to Canadians at that time, or didn't even know if it could be done in Canada because it was available in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And it was labeled as something else. Like it was called like the banker's table. It happened to be the infinite banking concept, but they weren't really good at giving credit where credit was due. So call them out on that, because it's really important to do that. So we explored, really, Jason and Glenn really took it by the, I don't know what's that saying, just took the bull by the hands and just really started exploring that a little bit more. And then, yeah, just as a part of a pioneering crew with Richard Canfield there, we really took it to the marketplace, really practiced a lot. We did our best to share Nelson's 12-hour boot camp, like from Becoming Your Own Banker, this book right here.
Okay.
And we did it over the course of like every Wednesday evening for 4 weeks in a row. Then we whittled it down to like Friday night and then an all day Saturday, and just lather, rinse, repeat all the time. I mean, it was really all worth it, but it was like, it definitely by the end of 12 hours, almost everyone's brain was fried.
Yeah.
You know,
So infinite banking came into your life when you were experiencing a pain point.
yes.
And you saw a solution, or kind of like exactly what Nelson says in his book. He saw a way out with the infinite banking concept. So that's really, really cool. So 2009, that's kind of when you learned about it. What happened in 2010 to like 2013 over the course of that few years?
Well, in 2009, I mean, that's when we really started, 2008, 2009, that's when I really started learning about it. And then I proceeded to pursue getting my life license, which didn't happen until 2010. And so that's when I was officially able to not only educate the Canadian marketplace about it, but also be able to help implement the infinite banking concept back in 2010. And then I was finally able to make it to my first IBC think tank in 2012. And that's when I first met Nelson in person. And then the following year in 2013, I might be a year or two off, but you know, that kind of happens when you're like dozens of years after. But I know in 2013, that was the year that the Nelson Nash Institute was formed. And that was the first year the Authorized Infinite Banking Practitioner program came out. And so I was definitely one of the first to graduate out of Canadians.
Yeah, so that's something to remember and to be proud of. And it's something to note here to our listeners too. So with the Nelson Nash Institute, his family and the board they are going above and beyond to preserve what Nelson has created. And practitioners, you do have to go through a training program to become authorized to coach and practice being an advisor. But basically, we are authorized practitioners of the infinite banking concept, and every advisor on the street corner is not authorized. And so some advisors may be well versed in whole life policies. However, there is something to say about being authorized, because what we are trained to do is preserve what Nelson has created and teach it the way Nelson taught it. And so highly, highly recommend to our listeners, if you don't do business with us, that's fine, but make sure you are doing business and working with an advisor who is an authorized practitioner through the Nelson Nash Institute. It is in your best favor to make sure you're working with an authorized practitioner.
It's your financial life on the line, and it's worth protecting your own legacy and working with someone whose entire practice is built around serving those who decide to walk down this path.
Yeah, for sure. It's no different. We're probably not going to go to the mailman to diagnose a sickness that we have, right? So we're going to go to our doctor. So this is the same. And so the first time you met Nelson, first impressions stick. So what was your first impression of Nelson when you met him? Because so many of us, and me included, I didn't get the pleasure of meeting him, but he sounds so wonderful. And when they replay all of his videos at the think tank, and it just gives me a glimpse into who he was. But what was your first impression of Nelson?
First impression, before I even got a chance to really talk to him, I don't know, because I just didn't know anyone who like really dressed like him either. So I had like, just very, I don't know why this word comes to mind, but very colonial, like out of that kind of era. And you'd almost think that he was like super formal because he dressed rather formal. And yet that could have been farthest from the truth in terms of like how he connected with me. And then just even observing him, how he connected with others. He really did live by what he shared. Like he would share a lot of quotes, insights, things like that. And he really meant it. It's like, he would always used to say, you got to meet people where they are at. And that included any single person that wanted to share what he was doing. So how he would talk to me is different than how he would have talked to you.
Right.
I'm not a super post-secondary type of person. I don't use a lot of very complicated words, that sort of thing. So he knew that. He would just talk to me so that I can understand.
Yeah,
but if
he met you where you were at.
But if you wanted to talk to him about economics or anything like that,
he could do that too.
He could do that too.
So that's pretty great to hear that. And from the videos that I have seen of him, he was a bit of a jokester. And so always had some sort of joke or, a line that he throws out there. And the one that I think that I've heard that I like the most is when people learn about IBC, they're like a mosquito in a nudist colony because they just don't know where to start. They're excited and all the things are all around, but they don't know where to start. And so that's a really good analogy of when clients do learn about IBC and come to us looking for guidance, they just don't really know where to start. But that's where our job comes in and we're there to guide them. And so I guess like when you watch that, this is Nelson Nash video, it's on YouTube. It really kind of shows like his heart. So tell the listeners, like, if they were sitting down with Nelson Nash, like, what is his heart for every single person who starts IBC?
It's just interesting. He's just love. He's just love. Like, although you may never have met him, those of us who did get to spend time with him, some of us more than others went to a concerted amount of effort to really preserve his legacy by taking all the videos and pictures and things like that. And quite often, like, there's lots of leaders that you can really glean a lot from their leadership, but they may not have been the best person. I mean, none of us are perfect, of course, right? But I have to say that Nelson's probably one of the closest leaders I've ever been close to in any stretch of imagination, and really felt that through and through, he was a very good person spiritually, emotionally, and good to people. He just loved and accepted everyone just as they are. When you combine that with the passion that he was sharing, it's very inspiring. I do miss him incredibly. One of the things that I'm really left with when I think about with Nelson is just the quality of life that he had. He often quite said, like, I can't even believe, like, because he passed away just shortly after he turned 88. Really, his life just kept getting better, even into his 80s. It just kept getting better and better and better. Like, these are just things that he would utter, like, not just from a personal standpoint, but just from like purpose-driven standpoint. And one of the last conversations I had with Nelson, what really struck me really hard in terms of part of the hugest reason why I am still driven today to continue sharing it, because sharing the infinite banking message is not for the faint of heart. It can be very challenging, as you know now, Lacey. But what I love about what Nelson said to me was he just really called me up 2 or 3 times in a singular day, which never happened previously. So I felt like there was something that was just, he obviously wanted to talk to me. So I called him back, and it turns out that it was about a week prior to his passing. Like you said, he's a little bit of a jokester, right? So he called me up and I'm like, hey, Nelson, what's going on? Is everything okay? And he's like, yeah, I just really wanted to tell you about what I did for my birthday. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I am terrible. I didn't even call and wish him a happy birthday. He said, no, that's not it. But I wanted to tell you because I took myself somewhere really expensive. I'm like, what? Well, where did you go? Like, what did you do? He's like, well, I took myself to the Rosewood Hospital. Or like whatever hospital was in his...
That would be an expensive trip.
Yeah, especially in the States, right? And so, right, wrong, or indifferent, I started laughing my head off because I can't even believe he made that joke in the first place. Like, but he was making fun of himself. And like, that's this kind of skill set. I don't know how he came up with that kind of personality trait to be able to take something that is kind of a serious situation, but then turn around and make it very lighthearted. So he just had a beautiful gift for that. The fact that he called me to share that he was in the hospital and that he was about to go into surgery, but not quite sure if he was going to make it, but he wanted to let me know that he loved me.
Yeah, so that really embodies like what kind of person he was and his heart, because he truly did care and wanted everybody in his life to feel important, really. And I value people who are like that. When you're in their presence or if you're on the phone with them, you're the only one that matters at that moment. It's something that I just think it goes a long way. And so one of the things that you said where he would say that his life just kept getting better, and that is a huge part of the message and why we share the message of IBC, is because if we're carrying on Nelson's legacy and what he created, he truly wanted other people's lives to improve just the way his did when he conceived the infinite banking concept and started to share it. And so that's now, he's no longer here to do that. And so that is now our mission. It's on our plate and it's our job on this earth to share with people a better way in hopes that they can improve their lives just the way he did and the way that we have improved our own personal lives with implementing IBC. And two, in his video, This is Nelson Nash, one thing that stuck out to me that he said when he talked about his family and he met his kids, his grandkids, his great-grandkids, I think the main thing that stuck out to me in that video was there's no stress. We don't have financial stress in our family. And it's because of the infinite banking concept and implementing that and carrying it on through the generations, not just him implementing it. And so I think that really speaks to what this concept can do for people and how awesome Nelson was for sharing what he had discovered with other people. Because by doing that and having the courage to step outside of the box and be brave with, hey, I'm going to start sharing this with people, he has changed so many lives.
This theme just keeps coming up. I keep talking about this with Lacey, but you just like, it's better just to focus on the seeds that you plant today rather than the harvest, because you don't know where it will end up or what will happen. And so whether good seeds are sown or bad seeds are sown, they all blossom somewhere. So I truly believe that the seeds that Nelson planted within myself and each and every one of his mentees, it's doing some solid good. And really, when I take a step back and I think about the last conversation or how he was as a person, what really stands out for me is that it gives a person freedom of just being able to focus and be present with people in their life. And quite often, we underestimate the amount of complications that a lack of a system around money can really cause for oneself. It keeps us mentally occupied in ways that it's like a boiling frog syndrome. You just don't even, like, you've been sitting in the hot water for so long, you don't even realize that you're boiling to death. And if you have a family and you have 3 or 4 people in your family that have no system around how to handle their cash flow, don't have the infinite banking lifestyle in their back pocket to handle their thinking around money, then there's just constantly that stress that you're talking about. There's stress. And like the ability to actually be present and show up for other people, that's like secondary, because you're so, you're ending up in a place where you're just surviving, right? Survival mentality does not breed the freedom to be creative, the freedom to be present, the freedom to be truly loving and in the moment. And so I do believe that because Nelson committed and was disciplined to living this lifestyle, it really gave him the freedom to be present for all of us.
To teach and mentor, and being personally mentored by him is a huge thing. And him taking the time out of his life to do that. And so I think we as advisors, even though Nelson is not with us anymore, he is walking on the streets of gold in heaven. And so it is our duty as advisors and as authorized advisors of the Nelson Nash Institute to stay true to his message. And sometimes we get the question, okay, well, why do you structure a policy this way or that way? Or why don't you do this? Or why don't you do that? It is our duty to stay true to Nelson's message and what he has taught us. And so that is the forefront. And if we get off road from that and, detoured from that, then it's time to really take a look, because Nelson's heart and Nelson's mission with IBC, it's up to us now to uphold that. And I think it is a very important job for us.
Yeah, there is so much to glean from really what you're saying, and so much to glean from Nelson's teaching. It really does start with getting the book and all of those things and really being committed to it. There is no shortcuts and no hacks. There's dedicated time that is needed in order for you to truly find out if this is the lifestyle that you want to live. And I will tell you from a very biased position that this is a better way, hands down. I'm so very blessed. I'm very grateful all the time for the cards that have been laid down in my life in order to get me to this place and this point in my life. And even just to be able to sit with you here, Lacey, I mean, I think that, just happy to be here.
Yeah, and I feel the same. Like it's, we don't ever know what tomorrow holds or where our path is going to lead us. And I certainly didn't know that my path was going to lead me to where I am here with you and knowing about Nelson and his book. But I'm very excited and grateful to be here. And so that, in a nutshell, is all about Nelson Nash. Now you kind of know why we talk about him so much and why we will always talk about Nelson. So if you have any questions, comments, feedback, reach us at wecare@ranchyourway.com. Head over to our website, because your first point of education is purchasing Becoming Your Own Banker book that is sitting behind Winnie. And we also are a strategic partner with Mary Jo Ehrman, and we have a brand new Canadian edition of her book, Farming Without the Bank. And her book was inspired by Nelson's books. So they are a great bundle together. You need to get them both. That's where your journey starts. Till next time.
Yes, until next time. But if there's anyone who can give hints on how to develop the skill around how to be funny in a very difficult situation, let me know, because that's the one that I don't know how to do quite well. So, all right.
Okay, bye.
So glad you leaned in with us on the WinEH podcast. We truly hope you're feeling more informed and empowered to take another step towards optimizing your financial life. Right now, make sure you hit subscribe so you can keep growing and learning with us. Until next time, we wish you prosperity in every area of your life.